whole pupil view is an approach to assessment that puts the pupil at the center. This combined approach poses and answers several questions for each and every student. Our assessments support this whole pupil view by offering you timely, rigorous ways of assessing your students in different areas that can contribute to your judgment of each student. That is, when looking for data, this is typically to seek answers to key questions to help enable you to make fully informed decisions for your classes and your students. You know your students well, and the data from GL assessments is there to support this judgment, enabling you to make fully informed decisions. Here is Daisy Christodoulou exploring comparing and contrasting teacher judgment with standardized assessment data.
So I think a fascinating thing to do when you're looking at standardised test data is to compare the standardised score to the pupil's most recent teacher assessment. And typically what we find is maybe 85–90% of the time there's really close agreement. And then what's fascinating is maybe 10% of the time there isn't. So there's a group of pupils for whom the teacher assessment is slightly different from the standard test assessment. And for some cases the teacher assessment have been more generous, in some cases less generous. So then you can just dig into that and think, why is that? And it's not about saying, well, the teacher assessment must be wrong, or the teacher assessment must be right. It's about looking at it and saying, why might that be? And you find all kinds of fascinating reasons why might that be. Some very obvious, to do with maybe people's attendance or something about they've been missing chunks of time in class, and that's why they didn't do well on a teacher assessment. But sometimes it sparks some new questions, and it leads to teachers following up and thinking, well, why is that? So I think in some ways the best use of the standardised tests is not to provide answers, but to generate questions. And if they generate really good questions, you can go off and investigate. That can be really powerful.
When looking for data, this is typically to seek answers to key questions to help enable you to make fully informed decisions for your groups and your students. What are their attainment levels? What is their ability? Are there any barriers to their learning? First, let's look at attainment. Our aim is to help you ensure that each student makes the best progress he or she can. You'll have many different sources of information to help build this view, such as how they work in school, their attendance, how they behave, and so on. In addition to these observations, you may also assess students with your own tests, which may be either directly related to their work they have just completed, or perhaps at the end of a term. Our role is to work with you as an assessment partner. We support your ongoing assessments with more formal assessments that enable comparisons to national benchmarks through standardized data, such as the Standard Age Score. Our assessments provide you with reliable, consistent data, whether looking at ability, barriers to learning, or in this case, attainment. Getting this information is very difficult to do by any other means, and this is where the progress test in maths fits in. Schools use our progress test year on year to understand how students compare to one another and to other students of the same age, and how they are progressing in their studies. Our assessments are tailored to particular year groups, which provides you with a very measured approach, so that you're looking at the same aspects of students' development each year. Through our rigorous approach to research, we work with large samples of students upon which to base our data. Therefore, we offer unparalleled statistical analysis. In this case, we are providing you with data from the progress test in maths. This data can help to guide your day-to-day work with your pupils. Your judgment combined with our assessment data are more powerful together. Using national benchmarking can support you in analyzing groups of students that have all taken the same assessment. It helps you understand how these students compare to one another and also with other students of the same age on a national basis. This can help you inform your teaching by looking at how students within a group have different profiles, require different support, or need further challenge. Some of the later modules cover these aspects in finer detail. With the Standard Age Score, you can also compare attainment across different assessments. For example, how did a student perform in maths compared to English? What about science and maths? What does their reading score look like next to their math score? Do students perform at the same level in these different areas, or do they have strengths in particular areas? This information can help you review the impact of the teaching and learning strategies used, and thus inform your planning of next steps for each student. Our progress test series enables annual formative and summative testing in maths, English, and science, and the new group reading test will provide you with data on reading skills. These enable you to see what students can do at a particular point in the year and can inform teaching in the next term or the next year. From a formative perspective, attainment test reports also provide you with rich narrative information about individual students and groups of students that can guide your planning. Next, let's look at ability and how powerful it is to get insight into the capabilities of a particular student. This will help validate your view as to whether a student is underperforming, performing as expected, or indeed, are they performing above expectation? Ability is not an easy area in which to gain objective insights. Our Cognitive Abilities Test CAP4 can help you gain these insights. CAP4 analyzes 4 aspects of ability and produces a clear profile of each for all students. There's also a lot of insight that can be gained by comparing ability with attainment. Comparing a student's ability with attainment results can be used to see if a student is achieving their potential in a particular subject or in their studies overall. For many students, the CAP4 results come back and look sensible, that is, what you might have expected based upon their attainment. Just as often, there will be a minority within the group that suddenly appear to have a profile that shows they are more capable than the teacher first thought. Sometimes these students are hard to spot or go under the radar. Here Daisy Christodoulou explores how data can help to reveal these hard-to-spot students.
If you look at the research on this, then there's lots of research that shows that children often from low-income backgrounds, children from ethnic minority backgrounds, children with SEN, that often they can be, sometimes the teacher assessment can be biased against them, and tests can help. Actually, it seems unlikely, but tests can actually show that those people's sort of true ability and what they really can do, and the test actually can be less biased than the teacher assessment. Of course, those kind of tests, they're not a replacement for teacher assessment. I think the way I've sort of used them is to use them in conjunction with teacher assessment, and as I say, to just give you an extra bit of information and to help flag up, as I say, any issues you might have missed.
CAP4 can help quantify those abilities that underpin academic success and potential. Without a measure of ability and potential, information about attainment can be missing valuable context. So far, we've seen that our whole pupil view promotes reliable ability and attainment assessment, which makes it possible to contextualize current achievement against potential. If students aren't achieving their potential, this begs the questions. Why? What's stopping them? Why is there a gap between a student's attainment and their potential? Are there any barriers to learning, and if so, what are they? You'll want to know what barriers are holding students back. One assessment that can provide real insight into barriers to learning is the PASS survey, Pupil Attitudes to Self and School. With PASS, the students complete an objective survey on themselves as learners. How they feel about themselves, how they feel about the place they're learning in, how they feel about the people that they're learning with and from. PASS may uncover reasons why a student is not performing well in the classroom. In the context of ability and attainment data, this may well be significant and help identify the keys to unlocking underlying potential, such as what's getting in the way of this student fulfilling their potential. There may be things happening outside of school. There may be things happening within school that are holding back the student. Other potential barriers to learning that require investigation may be whether a student has special educational need or disability. Here is Teresa Cavallo, the Special Educational Needs Coordinator at Proclist Community Primary School, discussing how underperformance is addressed at school through investigating barriers to learning.
The progress test data obviously gives us a real insight into the academic attainment of each child, and it gives us the year-on-year progress, which can be very interesting, and gives us the information that we need to work out whether a child is making the expected progress that we'd want them or like them to make in a year. Once we can flag any children that aren't making the expected progress, then we can feed that into meetings, particularly if children are statemented or children in care, and any SEN meetings that we might have with parents and teachers, and put in place the interventions and support they might need in the classroom. So it's very obvious by looking at standardised scores and or the levels, although levels are no longer with us, we can see where the weaknesses are, and then we can look alongside the barriers to learning, which we look at in the past tests, and then their CAT scores, so that we can implement anything that a child might need that will support their progress and hopefully make that progress at a better rate.
So, to summarise, our whole pupil view philosophy has interrelated elements, but the most important point is that it puts the student at the centre. Central to this is everything that you already know about your students, informing your judgment. This can be supported by the interrelation of attainment, ability, and barriers to learning data. Each individual aspect is important in understanding what a student is achieving, what their potential might be, and what barriers to learning are preventing the student reaching their potential. The power of this philosophy is in combining all of these to provide a well-informed whole pupil view. The better the student is understood, the better placed you are to provide the most appropriate teaching and learning to help them maximize their potential.